It was a quiet Sunday morning when everything changed for him. He woke up a little late, made a cup of tea, and walked towards his garage like he always did. He planned to wash his own car, maybe clean the garage a bit, and enjoy his weekend. But when he opened the door leading to the garage, he froze. There was a strange SUV parked inside his garage. For a few seconds, he simply stood there, staring at the vehicle. His mind refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. It was not his car. It was not his friend's car. It was not a delivery car. It was a big, shiny SUV he had never seen before. It was parked neatly, like the owner believed they had every right to be there. He stepped closer, his heartbeat rising. "How can a car be in my garage?" he whispered to himself. He walked around the SUV, checking if maybe he had left the door open or something unusual had happened. But the garage door was still locked from the outside. There were no signs of force or break-in. Nothing was damaged. Everything looked normal, except for the huge SUV sitting in his private space like it belonged there. On the windshield, he noticed a small paper note. He slowly pulled it off, expecting maybe an apology or an explanation. But the message made his eyes widen even more. "I will take it only for a few hours. Karen, HOA board." That was it. No sorry, no please, no thank you. Just a simple message telling him that someone he barely knew had taken over his garage. He could feel anger rising in his chest, but more than anger, he felt disbelief. Who does this? Who thinks they can use someone else's garage without permission? He muttered. He knew Karen from the HOA board. Everyone in the neighborhood did. She was the type of woman who believed she had power over everything. She loved giving rules, loved pointing out small problems, and loved telling people how they should live. But even for Karen, this was too much. He walked back into his house, grabbed his phone, and checked the security camera feed. The footage showed exactly what happened. Karen arrived early morning. She opened the small side gate, he didn't even know she had the code, walked into his garage, pressed the button to open the garage door, drove her SUV inside, closed the door again, and walked away like it was her own property. He played the video twice because he could not believe his eyes. "This is crazy," he whispered. "She really thinks she can do anything." He started recording his own video for proof. He filmed the SUV, the note, and explained everything clearly. His voice shook a little, not because he was scared, but because he was angry and shocked at the same time. He tried calling Karen, but she didn't pick up. He sent her a message asking why she used his garage and when she would come back. No reply. Hours passed. Afternoon turned into evening. Still nothing. He kept checking the time. "Few hours," he said with irritation. "It has been almost 10 hours. He walked around his living room, thinking about every possible reason she might have. Maybe her garage was full? Maybe she had guests? Maybe she needed shade? But no reason felt good enough. No reason allowed someone to trespass and use another person's garage like a private parking spot. Night came. The SUV was still there. By now, he realized something important. If Karen had no fear of using someone else's garage without asking, she would do it again. That thought made him even more uncomfortable. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was someone showing power, someone thinking she could do anything because she was on the HOA board. He stood at the window, looking at the closed garage door. "What should I do?" he whispered. He knew confronting Karen would lead to drama. She was famous in the neighborhood for her loud voice and sharp attitude. She always acted right, even when she was wrong. But he also knew he couldn't let this continue. If he stayed quiet today, she would take advantage again tomorrow. So he made a decision. He would wait. He would stay calm. And he would record everything. Later that night, while the streets were quiet, he stepped back into the garage one more time. He inspected the SUV again, checking if anything inside his garage was touched or moved. Thankfully, nothing was missing. But the simple fact that someone entered his property without his permission was enough. He sat down on a small wooden stool near the wall and sighed deeply. "This is going to turn into a big story," he said softly. "And Karen has no idea what she started." Minutes passed, then an hour, then 2. Still no Karen. The silence around him felt heavy. The garage, usually empty, now looked strange with that giant SUV inside it. It made him uncomfortable, almost like a stranger was sitting in his house. At midnight, he finally returned inside and locked the side door. He knew one thing for sure. Tomorrow, Karen would have to face him. But what he didn't know was that this small incident would grow into something much bigger. Something that would shake the HOA, expose Karen's habits, and bring unexpected drama to the neighborhood. And it all started with one simple moment. A moment that changed his peaceful Sunday morning into a storm. A stranger's SUV in his garage. A stolen parking space. A bold HOA member. And a man who refused to stay silent. This was only the beginning. The real story was yet to start. The next morning, he woke up earlier than usual. He didn't sleep well because his mind kept returning to the same strange picture, Karen's SUV sitting inside his garage like a guest who refused to leave. He kept thinking about her bold behavior, her note, and her silence. It was like she enjoyed taking control. He got dressed quickly and walked outside. The first rays of the morning sun touched the garage door, but the heavy feeling in his chest didn't go away. He took a deep breath and pressed the garage button. The door slowly lifted. And yes, the SUV was still there. But this time, Karen was standing next to it. She had her arms crossed, sunglasses on, and a proud look on her face. She looked like she was posing for a magazine cover about HOA power. He walked toward her, calm but tense inside. Karen tilted her head slightly and said, "Oh good, you're awake. I was waiting." Waiting? He felt his jaw tighten. He expected her to be embarrassed. Or at least explain herself. But Karen behaved like she owned the entire block. He pointed at the SUV. "Karen, why is your car still in my garage?" "You said a few hours." She slowly removed her sunglasses and sighed in a dramatic way, like he was the one causing problems. "Oh, relax," she said. "I needed the space. My garage is full of boxes from my new decorations. HOA work, you know." She waved her hand like she was a busy queen. He kept his voice steady. "But you didn't ask me. This is my property." Karen smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile people give when they think they're smarter than you. "I'm on the HOA board," she said proudly. "I have certain responsibilities. Sometimes I need extra space. It's not a big deal. I assumed you wouldn't mind." He blinked. "Assumed? Karen, you can't just park here without permission." She raised one eyebrow. "Why not? Your garage was empty. And you barely use it." He stared at her in disbelief. "You can't decide that." Karen rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. Everyone in this neighborhood knows I keep things organized. I make sure everything looks good. If your garage had anything dangerous, ugly, or messy, I would have given you a warning anyway." He felt something snap inside him. A warning? For his own property? Karen stepped closer and tapped her fingers lightly on the SUV's hood. "I'll move it soon," she said. "Maybe this evening. Or tomorrow. I'm not sure yet. But don't worry. I'll take care of everything." That was the moment he understood the truth. Karen had no intention of stopping. She believed she had power over everyone because she was in the HOA. She believed rules didn't apply to her. She believed she could control him too. He took a deep breath and looked straight into her eyes. "You need to remove your car now. Not later. Not tomorrow." Karen laughed, yes, actually laughed. "You're being dramatic," she said, waving her hand again. "I have a brunch in an hour. I don't have time for this discussion." He stepped forward, blocking her path as she tried to walk past him.
"Karen, this is trespassing." She gasped loudly, like he had insulted her. "Trespassing? On my neighborhood property?" "It's not neighborhood property," he said. "This garage is mine. Only mine."
Karen placed her hand on her hip and leaned slightly toward him. "Look," she said, "if you want to stay on good terms with the HOA board, stop making this a big scene. People who fight the HOA usually regret it."
There it was. A threat. A cheap, arrogant threat. He didn't reply. He didn't yell. He didn't argue.
He just watched her walk away towards the street with her fake confidence, her loud footsteps, and her high sense of authority. But deep inside, something very sharp clicked inside his mind. If she could talk like this today, what would she do later? If she could use his garage without permission, what would she take next? If she could threaten him with HOA power, how far would she go? As she disappeared around the corner, he whispered to himself. She really thinks she owns everything. He looked back at the SUV still stuck in his garage. Its shiny surface reflected his frustrated expression. A plan slowly formed in his mind. A plan he had never considered before. A plan that would show Karen exactly whose property she was playing with. He closed the garage door gently, but inside him, a storm was growing. Karen believed she had won. She believed she had scared him. But she wasn't ready for what was coming next. Because he had decided something important. She would never use his garage again. Not after what he was about to do. The day after Karen's bold excuses, he woke up with a strange feeling in his stomach. It wasn't fear, it was something else. A mix of irritation, disbelief, and a quiet fire growing inside him. He still hoped, just a little, that maybe Karen would take her SUV, apologize, and end this drama. But deep inside, he knew Karen was not that type of person. When he stepped outside that morning, the air felt heavy, like a storm was waiting behind the clouds. He walked toward the garage slowly, preparing himself for anything. He pressed the button. The garage door lifted up with its usual soft hum. The SUV was gone. For a brief second, he felt relieved. Maybe she understood. Maybe she realized she was wrong. Maybe things were going back to normal. But then he noticed something else. A deep, fresh tire mark on the garage floor. He crouched down and touched it. It was clean and dark, new. He looked closer and noticed something even stranger. The dust on the garage floor looked uneven. Like someone had moved things. Like someone had been inside his garage, again. But he had locked everything. Hadn't he? He rushed to check the side gate. Locked. The main garage door. Locked. So how did Karen get in? He ran inside, opened his laptop, and pulled up the security camera footage. The video time showed early morning, around 6:12 a.m. While he was still asleep. He watched in disbelief as Karen appeared on the screen wearing a hoodie and sunglasses, like she was in some undercover mission. She walked straight to the side gate. Typed something. The gate opened. He frowned. How does she know my gate code? The camera angle changed, showing her entering his garage. She looked around quickly, pressed the garage door button, and drove her SUV inside again like she was sliding into her own parking space. Then she walked out calmly, locking everything behind her. He stared at the screen, stunned. She did it again. A second time. On purpose. And this time, she didn't even leave a note. This time, she sneaked in quietly because she knew he would stop her if he saw her. His hands shook slightly, not from fear but from anger mixed with shock. This woman is unbelievable, he whispered. She thinks she can do anything. He stepped back into the garage, pacing. Each step echoed in the space as he replayed the footage in his mind. Karen's calm face, her quick movements, the way she acted like she owned the place. He remembered her words. I'm on the HOA board. It's not a big deal. Stop being dramatic. Now everything felt different.
This wasn't just disrespect. This wasn't just arrogance. This was control. Karen wanted control.
And she thought he was the perfect target. He leaned on the wall, trying to calm his breathing. The garage felt colder than usual, like Karen's presence had left a shadow behind. The tire marks on the floor felt like scars, marks of a battle he didn't start but was now forced into. He looked around the garage. His tools. His shelves. His boxes. Everything was still there. But the SUV. The SUV was back, parked perfectly, its metallic body shining under the garage light like a trophy Karen had stolen. He walked around it slowly, as if circling an enemy. Then something small caught his eye. A tiny yellow sticker on the back window. He leaned forward. It was an HOA parking permit sticker. Under it, written in small letters. Board member priority access. He scoffed. So she thinks this sticker gives her rights over my home? He took a step back and felt something change inside him. Not anger. Not fear. But a cold, sharp determination. Karen had crossed the line. She didn't just break rules. She broke trust. And she broke into his personal space twice. And this time, she clearly expected no consequences. But she was wrong. He looked up at the garage door mechanism. His smart lock system. Strong, automatic, and controlled only by his phone. A new thought slid into his mind. A thought he never imagined before. A thought that made a slow smile appear on his face. If Karen had decided to treat his garage like her personal parking spot, then maybe he should treat her SUV like a long-term guest. A guest that would not be leaving anytime soon. He walked out of the garage, closed the door carefully, and stood in front of it with a calm expression. Karen thought she had one. Karen thought she had full control. But she had just made her biggest mistake. Because now, he wasn't confused. He wasn't shocked. He wasn't scared. He was ready. And for the first time, he whispered the idea out loud. Let's see how she likes it, when she can't take her car back. The real game had begun. He spent the rest of the morning walking around his living room, thinking deeply. Every time he looked toward the garage, he felt the same heavy truth. Karen had crossed a line that she thought didn't exist. And for the first time since this madness started, he wasn't confused anymore. He wasn't waiting for her to do the right thing. He wasn't expecting an apology. He understood Karen now. She didn't respect rules. She respected power. She respected control. She respected people who pushed back. So if he wanted her to stop playing games with his garage, he needed to play a different kind of game. A smarter one. A silent one. A plan she would never expect. He opened his phone and checked the garage app. The smart lock system had several unique features he had forgotten about. Features most people didn't even know existed. Features that could turn a simple garage into a trap. One option stood out. Internal lockdown mode. He clicked on the info button. A description appeared. Activates full security seal. Door cannot be opened from the outside until owner deactivates manually. Even remote commands are blocked. He stared at the option for a long moment. This was it. This was the key. This was how he would stop her. But he couldn't activate it right now. No. If he locked it now, she would simply come knocking, screaming, and blaming him for everything. She would come too soon, complain too early, and ruin the plan. He needed her to leave the SUV for a while. At least a day. Maybe two. He needed her to walk into this trap completely blind. So he waited. He spent the whole day acting normal. He didn't message her. He didn't call. He didn't send any complaint to the HOA. He stayed quiet. Silent. Calm. Because silence makes arrogant people feel safe.
As evening came and the sun went down, the neighborhood lights flickered on one by one. Kids played in the street. People walked their dogs. Houses glowed warmly. And in the middle of all this peace, inside his garage, Karen's SUV sat like a dark secret. Around 8 p.m., he quietly opened the garage door just a little and peered outside. Nobody was around. The street was empty. No Karen. No footsteps. No drama. Perfect. He stepped back into the garage, closed the door, and finally clicked the button he'd been waiting to press. Activate internal lockdown? Yes. There was a soft mechanical sound. A long metallic click. Then a heavy thud. The garage door was now sealed from the inside. Stronger than a normal lock. Stronger than the remote. Stronger than anything Karen had. Her SUV was now officially a prisoner. He took a slow breath. His heartbeat was steady, but a strange excitement filled him. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't cruelty. It was a lesson. A lesson about boundaries. A lesson about respect. A lesson about what happens when someone decides to take advantage of the wrong person. He walked back inside his house, sat on the couch, and watched the security feed on his phone. The SUV looked quiet, harmless, unaware of the chaos it would cause the next morning. As he watched the screen, an unexpected thought came to his mind. He wasn't afraid of Karen anymore. Her loud voice, her HOA badge, her threats, her fake smile, none of it mattered when her car was locked in his garage like a stubborn pet who refused to leave. He made himself a cup of tea and leaned back, feeling calmer than he had felt in days. Now he just had to wait. And wait he did. The next morning came with loud knocking. Very loud knocking. He opened his door slowly. There stood Karen. Hair messy. Sunglasses crooked. Face red with anger. Behind her, the garage door stood tall and locked. And behind that locked door, her SUV sat silently. Karen pointed at the garage like she was pointing at a criminal. Open it. Now, she screamed. But he didn't move. He didn't flinch. He didn't panic. He simply folded his arms and said quietly, "You told me it was okay. So I'm letting your car stay. For a while." Her mouth dropped open. She couldn't believe what she just heard. And he smiled a little, not a big smile, not a mocking smile, just a calm, confident smile that told her, "This time, you messed with the wrong person." The real chaos was about to begin. And Karen had absolutely no idea what was coming next. Karen's scream echoed through the quiet neighborhood like a siren. Birds flew off nearby trees. A dog barked from across the street. Even a few curtains inside the houses moved slightly, people were already peeking out. But he didn't rush. He didn't panic. He stepped out of his doorway slowly, like a man who had been waiting for this moment. Karen stood in his driveway, shaking with anger. Her hands were balled into fists. Her face was bright red, almost matching the color of her lipstick. "What did you do?" she shouted, pointing at the garage door as if the door had personally insulted her. He stayed calm. "You parked in my garage without permission. Twice." Karen stomped her foot like an upset teenager. "That doesn't matter. You trapped my car. I need it. I have things to do. Meetings. Appointments. Important places to be." He raised an eyebrow. "Oh? So suddenly now you need your car?" Karen pushed her hair back aggressively. "Don't play games with me," she snapped. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. Open it immediately." He crossed his arms and leaned slightly against the doorframe. "Why?" he asked simply. Karen froze for a second. She didn't expect a question that simple. She expected fear, apologies, or panic. But not calmness. Because," she stuttered, "because it's my car." "And this," he said, tapping the garage wall, "is my garage." Her eye twitched.
"This is illegal," she yelled.
"You can't trap people's vehicles." He took out his phone and held it up. "Actually, I can.
"I have security footage of you entering my garage without permission.
Twice. You used my gate code. You opened my door. You left your car here. All without asking."
Her face turned pale for a moment.
The fake confidence cracked. Then she recovered quickly.
She forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, please. I'm on the HOA board," she said proudly.
"We have certain authorities." He didn't blink. "HOA doesn't own my garage." Karen's smile disappeared completely now.
She walked to the garage door and tried pressing the button herself.
Nothing happened. She pressed it again. Still nothing. She stepped back and frowned. "What did you do? Did you break it?"
He shook his head calmly.
"No. I locked it from the inside. Only I can open it." Karen gasped dramatically, like she had just witnessed a crime scene. "Why would you do that?" He looked her straight in the eyes. "You treated my home like your personal property.
So I'm treating your car like someone who doesn't want to leave." Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She had no comeback for that. For a few seconds, everything was silent except for the distant sound of a lawnmower.
Karen's breathing was sharp and loud. Then suddenly,
she grabbed her phone. "Oh, you're in trouble now," she said with a smug look.
"I'm calling the HOA president. You'll regret this." He shrugged. "Go ahead." Karen paused.
She expected that sentence to scare him.
But it didn't.
She stepped aside and made the call. He stood there watching her pace back and forth.
"Yes, hello? This is Karen. We have an emergency."
She waited for a response.
"Yes.
He locked my car in his garage.
He's holding it hostage." Another pause. "What do you mean it's not HOA business?" "It is. I am HOA."
The more she talked, the more her confidence crumbled. Finally, she ended the call with a frustrated groan.
She turned back to him. "They said they'll review it." "Review? I don't need a review. I need my car."
He shrugged again.
"You'll get it back."
Karen narrowed her eyes.
"When?" she hissed.
The small smile on his face returned, the calm, confident one.
"In 2 weeks." Karen froze. Her jaw dropped. Her eyes widened.
2 weeks, she screamed.
"Are you insane?" He nodded slowly. "You parked here without permission. Twice. You can wait."
Karen stomped up to him, pointing her finger in his face. "This is war," she whispered angrily. "You have no idea who you're fighting." He leaned forward slightly. "And you," he whispered back, "have no idea who you're messing with." Karen turned sharply and stormed down his driveway, her heels clicking so loudly they echoed across the street.
She didn't look back. She couldn't. She was too angry, too embarrassed, too shocked. He watched her leave, then looked at the garage again.
Her SUV sat silently behind the locked door, like a quiet witness.
He smiled.
The real battle had just begun. And soon, Karen would learn a lesson she would never forget. The next few days in the neighborhood felt strange.
People whispered outside their homes. Doors opened quietly. Curtains moved. Everyone knew something was happening, and everyone knew it had something to do with Karen. Karen avoided him for almost 3 days. No yelling. No banging on the door. No surprise visits.
She stayed strangely quiet, too quiet, until one evening he found a printed notice taped to his front door.
Emergency HOA meeting, mandatory attendance.
Topic: misuse of community property.
Signed, Chairwoman, Karen. He laughed under his breath. Of course she would do this. Karen believed the HOA was her personal army.
But he wasn't scared. He had something Karen didn't, the truth, and video proof of everything she'd done. The meeting was held in the community clubhouse, a place that usually smelled like cookies and old carpet. But tonight, the air was heavy with tension. About 20 neighbors sat in metal chairs arranged in a circle. People looked confused, curious, or slightly afraid. Karen stood in front of everyone, wearing her most official-looking blazer and holding a clipboard like it was a weapon. The moment he walked in, she glared at him like he was a criminal entering court. "There he is," she said loudly for everyone to hear. "The man who trapped my vehicle." Some neighbors gasped. Others just looked tired, like they were used to Karen's drama. He took a seat calmly. He didn't react. He just waited. Karen loved attention. Let her have it. She cleared her throat and began. "As the HOA chairwoman, it is my duty to protect this neighborhood from rule breakers. We have a very serious situation. A resident has abused power and misused community property." People looked at one another, confused. One neighbor, Mr. Thompson, raised his hand. "Community property?" "Karen, whose car was trapped." Karen placed a hand dramatically on her chest. "Mine," she said. "My car. Locked inside his garage for no reason." A few neighbors snorted. Everyone knew Karen always left out details. Mrs. Bennett spoke up, crossing her arms. "Karen, why was your car in his garage in the first place?" Karen stiffened. She didn't like that question. She faked a smile. "Oh, just a misunderstanding. I borrowed the space for a little while." He almost laughed. "Borrowed? Without asking?" Karen continued, voice rising. "But he locked it. For 2 weeks. That's kidnapping property." Another neighbor, a younger guy named Jordan, shook his head. "Karen, you went into his garage? Without permission? That's trespassing." Karen snapped, "I am HOA. It's part of my job." The room went silent. Even her supporters looked unsure. He finally spoke, calmly and clearly. "If she's allowed to use my property without permission, then maybe we should all park in the HOA office." A few people laughed quietly. Karen slammed her clipboard on the table. "Enough. I demand punishment. He must be fined, possibly removed from the community." Gasps filled the room. That was it. He stood up slowly. "All right," he said softly. "If you want the truth, let's show everyone." He pulled out his phone. Karen's eyes widened. She knew exactly what was coming. "I have full video footage," he said, tapping on the screen. "Of Karen entering my side gate. Entering my garage. Parking her SUV. Twice. Without permission." He held up the phone for everyone to see. The room fell silent as the video played on a larger screen. Karen typing his gate code. Karen slipping into his garage. Karen opening the door, driving in, closing it, and leaving like she owned it. Whispers filled the room. "Oh my. Is she serious? She really did that? She broke into a private garage." Karen panicked. "That video is fake," she shouted. "He edited it." Mrs. Bennett shook her head. "Karen, we all know he's not that tech smart." Jordan added, "Your face is right there on camera. Wearing that same ugly hoodie." A few people stifled their laughter. Karen grew desperate. "This is all taken out of context." He raised an eyebrow. "Oh yes? Show us the context where I give you permission to park inside my garage." Karen opened her mouth, but no words came out. Not even she could lie that far. HOA President Mr. Lee stood up. He rarely spoke during meetings, but now he looked exhausted. "Karen," he said slowly, "you broke multiple rules. Gate code misuse. Unauthorized entry. Private property violation.
Karen shook her head violently. No. I was doing my job. It was HOA business. Mr. Lee sighed. Parking your personal SUV is not HOA business. Everyone nodded. Now Karen stood alone.
Like a queen who suddenly lost her crown.
Then President Lee turned to him. Your response was dramatic, he said carefully. Locking the car for 2 weeks wasn't ideal. He nodded. I agree. But after Karen ignored me, threatened me, and broke into my property twice, I had no other choice. People murmured in agreement. President Lee straightened his papers. I will decide the solution now.
The whole room leaned forward.
Karen is officially removed from the HOA board effective immediately. The room erupted into shocked whispers. Karen gasped like she had been stabbed. You can't do that. I am HOA.
Not anymore, he replied firmly. And, the president continued, Karen must apologize and pay a fine for property violation. She will also cover any damages caused.
Karen's shoulders dropped. Her face crumbled. Her pride shattered.
She looked around the room, but no one defended her.
For the first time ever, Karen looked small. Powerless. Defeated.
The meeting ended with neighbors whispering and shaking their heads. He walked out calmly, leaving Karen frozen in the middle of the room, staring at the floor.
The war wasn't over yet. But Karen had finally learned something. She wasn't untouchable anymore.
After the chaotic HOA meeting, the neighborhood slowly returned to normal, or at least it tried to. People watered their lawns again.
Dogs barked from backyards. Cars passed quietly on the street.
But something felt different, lighter.
The air didn't feel controlled anymore.
People weren't afraid to step outside or talk to each other.
For the first time in years, Karen wasn't in charge of anything. And everyone knew it.
He walked home with a calm mind, but he also felt strange, almost like the storm wasn't fully over. After all, Karen wasn't the type to admit defeat easily. For 2 days, he didn't see her.
Not in the yard. Not on her porch.
Not even peeking through her blinds. It was like the community troublemaker had suddenly disappeared. But on the morning of the 3rd day, he heard a soft knock on his door.
Not loud. Not angry. Not demanding.
Just soft. When he opened the door, he froze.
Karen was standing there.
But she was different. Her hair wasn't perfectly brushed. Her voice wasn't loud. Her face wasn't filled with attitude. Instead, she looked tired.
Embarrassed. Almost human.
Can we talk? She asked quietly.
He didn't expect that. Karen never asked. She ordered.
But he stepped aside and let her stand on the porch. She stared at the ground, holding something small in her hand, a folded paper.
She took a deep breath. I came to say sorry. For everything. He stood still, not saying anything.
He wanted to hear her say the truth by herself. Karen forced herself to continue.
I shouldn't have gone into your garage. I shouldn't have used your gate code.
I shouldn't have yelled or acted like I owned the whole neighborhood.
She swallowed. You were right to be upset.
He noticed her hands were shaking.
This wasn't fake.
This was real. She slowly handed him the folded paper.
It's the official apology letter for the HOA records, she said. And the fine. I paid it.
He opened the paper and saw her signature, big, dramatic, curly letters, but it was signed with real regret. Then she took a small breath and looked up at him. I know you probably won't believe me, but I wasn't trying to hurt you, she said.
I just got used to controlling things around here. Too used to it. He nodded slowly. And the car? He asked. She laughed nervously. Well, that part was my fault too. I didn't want to park on the street.
I thought your garage was convenient.
He raised an eyebrow. Convenient does not mean free. Karen let out a long sigh. I know. I know that now. For a few seconds, there was silence.
A strange silence, peaceful, not stressful. Then Karen said something he never expected in his life.
I want to fix things. I don't want to be that kind of neighbor anymore. He blinked. Karen, wanting to be better? That was a bigger twist than anything he imagined.
All right, he said at last. Then we start with respect.
She nodded quickly. Yes.
Please. Just when he thought the conversation was over, he walked into the garage and pressed a button on his phone. The garage door slowly opened. Inside stood her SUV, clean, untouched, exactly how he had locked it. Karen stared at it like she was seeing a long-lost friend. I should probably return this, he said, smiling slightly.
Oh, thank God, she whispered. My husband kept asking where it was. I told him you were fixing something in the engine. He burst out laughing. Seriously?
She covered her face.
I panicked.
He stepped aside and let her get the car.
She didn't run inside like before.
She walked slowly, respectfully, almost like she was entering a church.
She sat in the driver's seat and let out a breath of relief.
When she backed out, she didn't even scratch anything, another miracle. She parked in her own driveway, turned off the engine, and walked back to him.
Thank you, she said.
Not just for the car, but for not embarrassing me more. You could have made things much worse.
He shrugged.
I just wanted my garage back.
And some peace.
Well, she said, maybe now you'll have both. For the first time in her life, Karen smiled at him, a real smile, not a fake HOA smile.
And then something unexpected happened.
As she walked back to her house, neighbors slowly peeked outside.
They watched Karen without fear. Without tension.
A few even waved.
Karen waved back. It was weird. It was unbelievable. It was peaceful.
Later that night, he sat on his porch with a cold drink, enjoying the quiet.
No shouting. No complaints. No surprise visits. Just calm. And then he thought.
Maybe locking her car for 2 weeks wasn't just revenge.
Maybe it was the lesson she needed. Maybe it finally changed her.
He smiled, leaned back, and enjoyed the one thing he never thought he'd have in this neighborhood.
A peaceful evening, without Karen causing chaos. The war was over. The neighborhood was free.
And the story of the garage incident became a funny legend people laughed about for years.